Good evening. You may well be here watching a High Score Reviews live Google Hangout. I say you may. There's every
You
chance
may.
that you aren't. I'm Tom. Here with me, going from left to right down in the bottom there, we've got Brian. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Just peachy.
Fantastic. Just peachy is just great.
Yes.
We've got Ian there. Hello there.
Hello.
I trust you're well.
Fair to middling.
And Tom,
Hello.
how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent stuff. Before we get to the task at hand here, which is to talk about the PlayStation experience from the weekend, does anybody have any tablet advice for Ian?
As
I'm
far
looking
as
for I'm looking for a good 10 inches, and it's got to be under
Still talking about
300 quid.
tablet? Oh, we
Raise it. Raise
about tablets. We are not that kind of website. Ian.
oh god.
Elsewhere,
Any advice is fine.
if you are seeking, okay.
What I don't know. I'm just talking. I don't know what you're possibly thinking. Any of you. I mean, honestly, 7 inches just isn't big enough.
I
Oh,
disagree
man.
with that fact. I think 7 inches is just plenty, and I will show it to you.
Oh my god. Good night, everybody.
Here we go.
R-rated right here.
This is a great start.
What experience are we here to talk about
It
again?
is a big one. It is a big one. Look at that. It's absolutely huge.
It's just
Bit limp at the moment, but yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I'm afraid I can't help you at the moment. Maybe we'll come back to this at some other time. Maybe we should, for now, talk about the PlayStation experience. For the next 40 minutes or so, it was the first time they've ever done this. PlayStation put on this event. Aside from E3 and all the other big conventions and things, they put on their own thing in Las Vegas, and we're going to talk about the keynote because none of us were actually there ourselves. They kicked it off with Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. We'll get to that one first then. Tom, what did you make of what they had to show? It was the first time they'd really shown, well, it was the first time they'd shown any gameplay, and I thought it looked pretty good considering it was, presumably it's still a year from coming out.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, what a way to start off the keynote. I mean, I think the only studio with the power and capability to pull off a sequence like that in such a great amount of detail, is Naughty Dog, and the stuff they've been able to implement, the gameplay changes with the grapple hook, and everything now just seems so much more fluid and seamless, and it's just non-stop at a great level of detail, which I think was very impressive. Certainly very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, I thought what was cool about it was that I think everyone probably would have had an expectation or has an expectation around Uncharted now that it's all about set pieces and
Yeah,
big explosive moments, and that's definitely a way to sell your game, is to show something like that, and it's something they've done before. But I thought it was cool that they showed something quite different, and I think they showed that they're addressing a problem that people have had with Uncharted, certainly with Uncharted 3, which was that it was kind of just firefight after firefight, and connecting those firefights was a bit of light traversal sometimes and some puzzle solving, and other than that, all that really broke up the gunfights was set pieces.
yeah,
And so for them to show that they are actually crafting levels that actually make the potential gunfights more interesting, because it seemed as though you could potentially have got through that whole encounter that they showed without actually firing a weapon.
yeah,
It seems like they've taken a lot of you can see the influence of The Last of Us in that kind of
very much so. Yeah.
encounter, in the way that you can go about it in different ways, and that you don't necessarily have to murder everybody that you see. Because there's always been a slight disconnect between Nathan Drake being this kind of wisecracking, nice guy, and the fact that he murders thousands of people throughout the entire game.
He's got a lot of kills under his belt.
Like, if he survived long enough to be in The Last of Us, he would be one of the psychos that you have to end up killing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
This is the one problem I've always had with Uncharted. I only played one of the Uncharted games, and I didn't get too far into it because it became rapidly clear I was just going to have to kill a lot of people. And I've killed a lot of people over my time, and I'm kind of after something a little bit different than running around killing lots of people. So the thought that they've given you the option to do other things might actually draw me to the game in a way that I never thought I'd play an Uncharted game again.
Which Uncharted game did you play out of interest?
I played one on the Vita.
Well, that is
I've got some sitting on the PlayStation.
It's not way to introduce yourself to that series at all. No.
You just consumed everything backwards.
You've done yourself and the game a massive disservice. You should just. I would honestly leave this. Go and play Uncharted 2. No, we'll be perfectly okay with you.
I do have that on the PlayStation 3, so I will give it a go. But if I have to kill more than 5 people early on, then it's just not going to happen.
That's actually because if I'm right, I think I'm right in thinking that Uncharted 2 actually opens this fairly reasonable time before you actually shoot anybody. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. Yeah.
With kind of a bit of, yeah, I am right. Yeah. Yeah. So go get that game, Ian. Go get that game.
Okay,
I just realised, by the way,
I'll give it a go then.
Yes,
That's good to hear.
Really cheap. I'll lend it to you. I've got it sitting here in all its glory. Anyway, I just realised I've dropped my microphone on the floor because the reason I was muffled earlier, or the reason I'm not muffled now, is that I'm now just speaking through my laptop microphone.
I just want to point out that this is the first time I've actually seen your mouth area without that microphone being in since we started doing this.
I've been sitting here for the last 15 minutes speaking to essentially a useless object. I was speaking through this when in fact I'm speaking through this. And you can hear me through this, but I think I'm speaking through the madness. Anyway.
So throughout all these hangouts, the mic has been useless.
I think it has been that one. I hope it has at least. So that would be kind of lame.
To be fair, at least it makes you look professional. I mean, I've just got my iPhone and my earphones in and the little microphone here because every single option I tried last time failed. So it offsets the cat hat to even out your professionalism.
I know. I know. Professional.
They grew up so fast.
No.
you got something in your eye there, Brian?
A little bit. I'll be okay.
So back to Uncharted.
Yeah.
Oh, Uncharted. Yes, Brian. What did you think of what they showed of Uncharted?
I liked it. I will say this: I was a little disappointed with the character model this time around. That being, I mean, obviously it's Nathan Drake, but it looks like Nathan Drake. It didn't seem like there was any, and maybe I just saw a bad video perhaps, but it didn't seem like there was any more detail to Nathan Drake in that demo than what there was in the past. And then especially after that teaser trailer where they showed him looking, a little bit aged, you could see like the crow's feet in his eyes around there. I was expecting a little bit more from that, but other than that, I mean, it's Uncharted. I mean, it looks good. It's going to be great.
I like that they've given, but I've just made everyone feel a bit more at ease by giving myself a nice patch. And I don't know what those things are above my head. Yeah, love hearts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like that they finally just said to hell with it and given him a whip.
Indiana Jones style.
They've stopped even, everyone knew this is Indiana Jones. Now they've just given him a whip. Fedora, hopefully, by the end of the game, and then everyone will be fine with that, I think. But speaking of the whip, that actually looks like it could be a really cool traversal and combat mechanic. I mean, the way he got out of the way of that grenade by just, I mean, obviously it was kind of a predetermined point in the environment that he was able to use it. But if you can kind of incorporate that in similar ways to how you can do like grapple around in Batman, for example, and kind of use it to swing across chasms, and as we saw in the demo, kind of use it to launch yourself into somebody and take them out. That could be pretty cool. There just seemed to be a lot more kind of verticality and freedom to the combat, sort of and the enemies seemed a bit smarter. It just seemed more dynamic than before, when quite often the combat in Uncharted could just be there are kind of 5 or 6 cover points. Everyone will come from the same sort of area and basically just shoot you until you die, or you shoot them until they die. There wasn't really much else to it. Quite often it was only really made interesting by what was going on around the combat, and the combat itself was actually kind of meh. Whereas in this, it actually looked like the combat was. You might actually be able to put some thought into it, which is cool.
Yeah.
I think grappling hooks are one of the best and most underused ways to move around in computer games. And having a whip which acts effectively as a grappling hook
Whoa!
is another thing that does sound awesome. Not quite as awesome as your cake and glasses and party outfit, obviously.
There's a randomizer button to all these effects.
We're here trying to have a professional conversation, and all of a sudden cakes just pop up out.
God damn it, Tom. God damn it.
I haven't done one of these for about 3 months. I'm really taking myself with all of the fancy features. Anyway, I apologise.
Truth be
So,
told,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
grappling
go.
hooks. Grappling hooks. Good.
I was a little lost on that demo because everything was going so fast. I'm like, where the hell is he? Because usually it's kind of this narrow path, and he's just going all over the place, swinging around. I got lost through that demo trying to figure out where he was supposed to be going the entire time, which I'm sure it won't be, like that, when the actual game comes out. But
I also really liked how they were how the stealth and the combat was kind of been merged into one. So, in the past, it was quite obvious when the game kind of wanted you to be stealthy and when it wanted you to do combat. And the levels were designed in such a way that, right, this is a stealth bit, this is a combat bit, this is a stealth bit. Whereas in this, you saw him start off being stealthy, then get spotted, kill a few guys, but then was able to lose them again, I think by using like smoke as cover from a grenade, if I remember rightly, and then kind of sneaking around them again using the foliage and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool, and again was pretty dynamic. And having banged my head against the wall playing Assassin's Creed Unity, where the stealth in that series is still absolutely broken and is ridiculous, seeing what they seem to be doing with Uncharted is pretty encouraging. And I think I kind of agree with you, Brian, that I thought it looked great visually, but maybe not that kind of, oh my god, great that maybe Uncharted 2 was the first time you saw it, or even The Last of Us, which was obviously really late in the PS3 life cycle. But I suppose at this early stage, it's really encouraging to see that they are genuinely making steps forwards in the gameplay, and you would hope that another year of development, it should.
Yeah. Do we have a release schedule for this? There's nothing on the Eurogamer article that says when it's due out.
They just said 2015, and I would imagine it will be kind of late 2015.
Yeah.
Normally a November kind of game, but
yeah.
Compare it to like Watch Dogs, where Ubisoft were. I don't know that when they showed that off and when they showed Unity off, you kind of got the impression that there was something not quite right because they were showing off very sort of controlled demos where everything was kind of too perfect. Whereas with Uncharted, it did glitch out. You saw him fall through the world when he died. Maybe it didn't look as amazing as we maybe hoped it would do. But they were brave enough to just say, right, this is where we're at. We're still a year away, but here's what we've got for you. Have a look. And I still think that it looks great and looks fun to play. So I'm pretty hyped. And Troy Baker and Nolan North are now brothers in the game. Again, that's just another what the hell moment. We'll just go ahead and do that. Someone's got to do it eventually. That's cool.
Well, they were together in The Last of Us for a little bit.
They were in slightly different circumstances.
No, you're right.
Nolan North was a creepy pedo rapist, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Troy Baker, I was going to say Troy Baker was the hero, but...
Is that as opposed to a non-creepy pedo rapist?
Those lovable ones.
They're out there somewhere.
No, they're not.
I think that's the key to move on, actually.
I absolutely agree. So after Uncharted, what was next? Baseball, I think. No one cares. Bloodborne, I think, was the next kind of.
Hey, wait a minute. There's an
Well,
American here.
does anybody?
Hey, listen, I cut my teeth playing Earl Weaver baseball on the Amiga, so don't try and tell me that nobody plays baseball over this side of the pond.
Oh.
Do you
I
play baseball games? Does anybody play baseball games?
Oh no, no one gives a shit. Keep on going.
Does anybody care about Bloodborne?
You guys probably do, so go ahead.
I honestly don't.
No.
I mean, look, I'm sure it's going to be a great game, but really, it's Dark Souls. Just in a
Yeah,
different
faster
setting.
pace.
Yeah, a little bit faster pace. I looked at that. I'm like, I'm glad that people are hyped for it, and that's all well and great. But to me, it's just something else, and it doesn't look. I mean, it looks good, but it doesn't look like something that I'm just going to have to, fight my way through the crowd to get. But I don't get the hype on Dark Souls anyway, so that's just kind of a biased opinion.
What you're saying is it looks like a future PS Plus free game.
Possibly in the future, and maybe when it Dark Souls 2 comes out for the PS4, I'll give it a shot, and maybe I'll find something about it that I can understand. But at this point, I tried Demon Souls, through the controller after like 20 tries trying to get to the first goddamn level, and I just kind of gave up after that. And then Dark Souls just seemed to be more of the same, so I never tried it. So that's just my opinion.
I've got a wife and a kid, and I don't have time to play computer games I don't win at. So Dark Souls is just instantly off the menu.
Wow.
I'm kind of one. Like, I've never really been interested in them. They don't seem like my kind of thing, really. But I kind of don't know if maybe this is one I will at least maybe try, because it's kind of coming out. Like the orders in February, and then kind of after that, there's kind of a gap, and then Bloodborne, and then there's kind of another gap, and then there's The Witcher, which got delayed today. So
What about Batman? When's that come out?
Batman's summer,
June, yeah.
which is a great time for it to come out. Like, praise the Lord, there will actually be something to play and buy that isn't knack on PS Plus. Thank Christ. Although, I started playing Dragon Age yesterday, and there's every chance I'm still playing that in 2019. I mean, you can't walk 5 yards without someone going, "I need help, help me."
Yeah, I don't have time for that either.
You mean you don't like knack?
Everybody loves Knack, right?
I know. How dare you, sir?
I don't know what I was thinking. So sorry.
No, I played it. It's not good.
It came with my PS4, and I took it out of the console box, but I didn't take it out of its own box and sold it.
I got it on Amazon.
Somebody bought it?
CX bought it, yeah. I put the place out of business, I think. Yeah, so I might jump into Bloodborne. I'll see. I didn't really understand. I mean, I know that apparently the whole series has had this kind of unique co-op, but not quite co-op mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Then what they were showing on Saturday, to me at least, did just look like co-op. If it has co-op, that might be something that makes it a bit more accessible, because then at least you
have a chance.
Rather than but even if it is still really hard, at least you can kind of plan your attack with another person rather than just banging your own head against the wall until you figure it out. So maybe it will be a bit more accessible. But then I'm sure if they made it too accessible, you'd have the hardcore fans who enjoy it already saying, what the hell have you done to Dark Souls? So I could probably just accept that it's not for me and
move on.
Yeah, move on. Yeah, as you say. Let's not do this anymore. Let's just talk about what comes to our head. So I suppose the other big one, I mentioned it anyway, was the Order, which they've been kind of cagey on, and I still think they're being a bit cagey on, which kind of worries me. And I mean, I don't know if it's because they kind of know that it isn't much more than a pretty linear third-person cover-based shooter, of which there are hundreds. But I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if it's got great production values, a cool world, a decent setting, guns that are fun to use, and it looks great, and it has a decent story, and it's a new IP. It's still got potentially a lot going for it. So I'm hoping that, you know, their caginess isn't maybe a sign that they aren't confident in their own game. Because I do think that even though it does look kind of uninspired from a gameplay perspective, it does still have a lot going for it because it is in an interesting setting that you don't really see in games much, and a new IP is always good, and it does look amazing visually, and some of the weapons they showed look pretty cool. But what do you guys think about it? Because I feel like I'm still not getting, like, compared to what we saw on Saturday to what we've seen before, I'm still not getting a better impression of what there is to it, like other than just a third-person shooter.
I think the Order 1886 is a game to show off the capability of a PS4. And I think that I mean when I watch the videos and all that, it looks like you said, it looks good, but I just have this bad feeling that it's just going to be one of those games that's short as hell. And I'm afraid that they had a game and they're like, oh, this looks great. Oh wait, we forgot people actually probably going to want to play this, and then they had to go and delay it and add more features to it. So, and that's just the way it looks from an outside perspective. Chances are I'm going to play it or buy it or what have you, but that's just the way it looks to be.
I don't necessarily think there's anything overtly wrong with a shorter game. I think it depends how good the pacing is. A game like Uncharted 2, Ian, eh?
I
that's
wouldn't be knowing about that.
It's not the longest game in the world. It's probably it's longer than it's longer than a Call of Duty, but it's still not pushing, into the teens in terms of hours. But the pacing is so good. In that game, there's sometimes a bit of downtime and some good narrative stuff, and then puzzles and platforming and combat and whatever. If the order literally is just here's a room of dudes, shoot them, here's a room of dudes, shoot them, here's a room of dudes, shoot them, here's a werewolf, it needs a bit more than that. So I'm hoping that there is more to it than that, and also that they don't take control away from you too often. If the game does things for itself that you could feasibly do yourself, that would be kind of lame as well. So I think a demo would do that game a lot of favors. But nobody does demos anymore.
Unfortunately not, no.
That's a shame.
Sports games and Lego games. Two things that you know exactly what you're going to get every time, and there are demos. But games that could do with one because they're new and interesting, but you're not quite sure. Yeah, no demo. Oh well.
I think open betas are the new demos.
Yeah. So, to be honest, pre-alphas are the new full games if Assassin's Creed Unity is to go by. Do you have any thoughts on the Order, Ian, as someone
I have no thoughts on the Order.
None at all?
I'm not a shooter person. I've paid very little attention to it, so I have nothing to contribute at this particular point.
Okay. Have you played the Order 1885?
I haven't.
No? Was that not an Amiga thing? Okay. What else did they show? Somebody help me out here. Or just, throw a game out there that you want to talk about.
I'm going to throw a game out there. I'm going to throw No Man's Sky out there.
Sure.
Okay.
That looks awesome.
I mean, it looks all kinds of awesome. It almost looks so good it can't possibly be as good as it looks.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It looks good, and I'm on board. But at this point, we know what the capability of it is as far as the generation of planets and all that. But what the hell are you doing in the game?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where is the game? Where is the
Still
game?
not sure what you're doing.
I mean, are you scouring for like supplies to take back to Earth? I mean, are you just there like, hey, you know what? I just feel like visiting a planet today. Okay. Or I mean, is there? I mean, they need to start getting to what the point of the game is, as opposed to telling us the capability of the engine or of the game itself. So, I mean, they already have me, but
Yeah,
now I just
they
need a
had me at
little
that
bit more.
first trailer.
Yeah.
That was just one of the most incredible things I've seen. And you can't explain to someone who hasn't played these games how incredible it is to see somebody walk out of the sea into a cockpit and fly off into space in a seamless transition. I mean, that was just, I don't know, perception altering as to what games should be able to do for me. Because I've played Frontier, and I've played Elite, and I've played all these games, I've played Spore, I've played all these games where you have these nicely little segmented pieces. But it seems to be able to throw it all into one. And that's just, it's literally a game changer. But all we've heard about how it works and what you have to do is vague things about plot or something that'll unfold as you get towards the center of the universe, or the galaxy, sorry. And that's about it. That's all we've got. So, yeah, I'm completely with you on that, Brian. What's the game? There's a part of me that thinks, I don't care, I don't need a game. If you go, I mean, Frontier didn't have a game. Elite didn't have a game. Elite Dangerous is going to have a game by the sounds of it, which puts me off a little bit, but that's another discussion for another time. But if you give me a good enough world, and if you give me a good enough sandpit, like, you know, Minecraft or Terraria, you don't necessarily need to give me a game. I'll make my own game if it's good enough. So I'm already on board with, like yourself, I can see the point about where is the game, but there's another part of me that says, I don't really need one. I'll make my own fun if they give me a good enough galaxy and allow me to do it.
That also depends too, though, on the tools that they provide for you. Like with Minecraft, they give you the tools to create your own world, your own game, as you put it. But you know, and I agree with you on that aspect. But it just comes down to what this game is offering the player. So. Yeah.
I think it has a lot of people in terms of curiosity. I just think now it just needs to clarify to the audience in terms of what it actually is in terms of a game. Like, what is the player actually going to do? I mean, it looks revolutionary from a game design perspective, and it looks very impressive to see that. But what are you actually going to do when you have the control in your hand? You know, what's the end goal, if you will? And I understand that you can create your own objectives and stories within that, but there still needs to be some sort of clarification involved as to what it is you're actually paying for.
Yeah, and I think this is what's hit Elite Dangerous recently, in that everybody wanted it to be the new Elite, and now it turns out you can't play offline effectively. And a lot of people have said, hold on a sec, this isn't what I was sold. Now, the danger with No Man's Sky is that people are making up their own idea of what they're going to be sold, because there is this sort of information black hole at the heart of the gameplay. So it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a point that comes where they detail it more, and quite a few people are going to fall off the bandwagon, I suspect, because it's not what they'd built it up to be. So maybe really we all ought to stop being quite so ridiculously excited by it.
There could be a catch somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. I suppose being a small team, it's not going to be story content heavy, because they can't create that sort of content. That's why it has to be procedural, I guess. Because small teams can make large procedural games. Small teams can't make large, you know, narrative or guided content heavy games, because the content has to be made by people.
At this point, the only thing that would turn me away from that game is if it was one of those things where there's a bunch of microtransactions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't see the circumstances where I don't end up owning it, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a PS4?
Well, I believe it's still due to come out on PC at some point. I think it's a PS4 timed exclusive. I think they'd be foolish not to put it out on PC as much as anything else, because the Frontier crowd, the people who played space exploration games and dogfighting games, played most of them on PC. I think they'd be distinctly foolish to sign any deal which rules out that player base. So as I understand it, it will be going to PC, but it'll be a timed exclusive on PS4.
Yeah, I think that seems to be the thing is um, coming first to consoles is the new only on PS4. It is now. We're getting it a little bit before the other console and the PC at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else who wants to throw out the next game?
Do we want to talk about that troll that was Final Fantasy VII?
That was a pretty in-depth discussion, by the way. I felt like it was too serious. There wasn't enough ridiculous or microphone revelations going on there. I'm almost disappointed in you.
That was actual content.
I'm sorry.
Content, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm tempted to make "We Don't Need the Game" the new tagline for our gaming reviews website.
That could work. That could work.
Let's just everybody just calm down because we might come off as professional.
Easy, Tiger. Wait till we get to the Day of Tentacle, and I'll go all fanboy on it. It'll be fine.
All right.
Okay then, Final Fantasy. I have no connection to this series
Nope.
at all.
Nope.
I might be one of the few who grew up with a PS1 and didn't play Final Fantasy VII. I was all about Digimon World.
How does a representative of Square Enix go out into the middle of a stage, throw up a Final Fantasy VII logo with all the hype behind a possible remake, and then be like, by the way, it's a PC port? Like, you can see the audience just like go wild at first, and then he's like, oh yeah, it looks just like it used to, and then like everybody just went silent.
Yeah, exactly.
It was-
I could appreciate how big of a deal this potentially was, and he walked out and the logo was on the screen, and then they started showing, I guess this PC port. And I was looking at it and thinking, so this is what it has always looked like? Is it gonna change in a minute? And be
Yeah.
like, and here's what it looks like now. Is this like a before and after massive build up? Just kind of stayed looking crap.
And the bad part is that he probably left the stage going like, why didn't anybody applaud?
Well, this is what people wanted, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Apparently Square Enix just hates making money. I don't know.
They're going to charge at least $14.99. At least.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna get that off my chest.
Is this where I admit I've never played a Final Fantasy game in my life?
Neither have I. In
No,
fact, and
neither have
I
I.
think I may have played one on like the DS or something because I think I just felt bad that I'd never played one and I didn't like it. So, yeah.
Oh, and
I
you
don't
have a
know.
go at me for
Yeah, I
not
was about to
liking
say.
Uncharted on the Vita. Basically, Tom, even I know you're doing it wrong.
Well, in fairness, I think the game I played was just a port of an old Final Fantasy game. Like
You're
Final
making my
Fantasy
point
4
here.
or something. Whereas Uncharted was built from the ground up to be shit on the Vita.
Now, let's be fair. It was okay on the Vita.
That was an actual example of a game that was too long.
Yeah.
It just went on and
And
on and on, on and on. Combat, rowed a boat. Combat, rowed a boat. It was just, ugh. It was a chore to get through. I got the platinum trophy.
I kind of have a backhanded compliment as far as the Vita is concerned with the PlayStation experience. I'm glad that they mentioned it.
Yeah, it's not dead.
Yeah, it's not dead.
It's getting a lot of stuff, to be fair. Like, a lot of the indie stuff that's coming to PS4 is also coming to Vita, which, for you, Ian, who don't know,
I love the Vita. The Vita is my gaming machine of the year by an absolute massive stretch. I've probably played more on that console than any other console this year, certainly. It's just brilliant. Day of the Tentacle Special Edition coming out for PS4 and Vita. So
Well, that's really good that they mentioned the Vita, but it's also another thing too where they pretty much just confirmed that it's a port machine.
yeah, well, I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. As long as they port the right things over, then yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that entirely.
Yeah, but how long can that last before people go, hey, you know what? It looks like there's nothing else coming out, that I'd be interested in a retail aspect.
But if it's cheap enough and there's a market for it, the thing is, it's an odd console because I've heard a rumor they still sell physical media for it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I've got some here. I've got what have I got? I've got Virtua Tennis 4.
Oh, awesome!
I've got
Can I borrow
Tearaway,
that?
which is pretty much the only one worth having.
What's that? Tearaway.
I've got Killzone, which came with it, and I've never opened. And I've got Football Manager, which should have been the best Football Manager ever, and it was the worst Football Manager ever. Football Manager on a portable that can actually handle it is like the dream, not a crappy phone version. But no, they did not do right by that at all.
No, I just think by
trophy.
positioning Vita as the sort of second screen for the PS4, where you can play it as a streaming vehicle from the PS4, and then using it to port indie titles, smaller games, stuff like that. I think they've perfectly positioned it. I think there is a market for that.
I'm sure there is, but my argument with that is not that I'm disagreeing with you on that. It's more of like, did Sony just give up on their own product and just wait for everybody else to do it for them?
Very possibly.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lack of, like, if you could call it AAA titles coming to the Vita. It is more of your smaller indie projects and ports.
Well,
I mean,
I think Tearaway was the last throw of the dice in that regard, and it sold terribly. It sold absolutely terribly, and you couldn't really blame them for then saying, well, we've got this thing over here that sold 15 million units in 1 year. We've got this thing over here that sold 15 units in 3 years. We're going to support the one that's doing well, I'm afraid. So.
Yeah, I think they're doing I think they're doing all they need to do to keep it, relevant in the niche market or as a niche product, and I suspect they're still making money off it.
And the thing is, as well, to be fair, I think it's the vast majority of people that buy a Vita love it. It's just getting people to buy it.
I don't think AAA titles on handhelds are the way forward anyway. I think smaller, bite-sized gaming, which, your 6 to 10 hour games that you can buy for a tenner or you can buy for 15 quid, or your small sandboxes like Minecraft and Terraria, or Terraria, however you want to pronounce it. I think that is the way forward for that kind of play, because it's something for commutes. It's something for, when you've got an hour to kill or a half hour to kill and you're on a plane or a train, maybe not driving an automobile, but I think that's the niche they're putting it in, and I think it's a good one. And I don't think they need to try and get AAA titles on there. I think they just want to keep it as a small handheld, as a second screen for the PS4, and serve people who like smaller games.
So it's kind of like a replacement for your iPhone games.
Yeah, well, it's got physical controls. I mean, if an iPad had a £20 Bluetooth controller that worked with it, it would potentially blow the Vita away in some ways. I don't understand why that product doesn't exist. But there you go, that's another thing entirely. But yeah, it's a similar market to the iPad, but for people who prefer a game with physical controls. I hesitate to use the phrase proper gamers or real gamers, but I suspect you know what I mean when I say that sort of thing. People who want the tactile responsive controls and find them much easier to use than a virtual joypad, which quite frankly is a monstrosity that should be shot at dawn.
All right. It's taking a dark turn. So the day of the tentacle then.
Yeah.
And Grim Fandango, which we knew about already, but they put a date on it now. January.
Yeah, Grim Fandango's good. Day of the Tentacle is great. Possibly the peak.
Never played them. Never played either.
Alongside Sam and Max, I think it was probably the peak of that whole era.
What about
clicks.
What about Monkey Island?
Monkey Island was kind of, well, you could go back to Loom, I guess, and Manic Mansion, but Monkey Island was the original iconic point and click, I suspect, for a lot of people, and the real iconic comedy point and click as well. But I think Sam and Max Hit the Road and Day of the Tentacle were probably still the peak.
Because the Monkey Island has turned up on PS3 sales for years for really, really low prices, and I've always kind of been tempted and never taken the plunge.
It is good. It's worth getting it, if only for the sword fighting. I mean, pick it up on Steam for 2 and 6, and just for the sword fighting, which is one of the most iconic things, I think, in gaming. Full stop. I think this is the thing about Monkey Island, is that it transcended just the game to become an icon within gaming. So Guybrush Threepwood is, one of these characters that, in some ways, amongst gamers of a certain age, shall we call them, will stand alongside Mario and Sonic as emblematic of a type of gaming and a period of gaming. And you'll find references to the sword fighting in Monkey Island still cropping up in games made today. It may be that you, young Tom, are a little too on the young side to appreciate how good they were at the time. And it may be that some of us older gamers are slightly clouded by nostalgia as we play back through them again. But at the time, they were the AAA franchises of their day.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, content. That's more content for you.
I feel enlightened. Where were you during my childhood? I was toiling away on Digimon World. I didn't realise these things existed.
I've been playing the game for longer than you were born.
My PS1 got confiscated because I played too much Digimon World. And I never got it back. I never got it back. This is the only remnant I have of my PS1. This is the only game that I didn't lose. There's this absolute classic here. Anyone play this?
Oh, God. Oh,
yeah.
I can't see it. What is it?
What a great game this was.
Fantastic
wow.
stuff.
I've still got Joan Lomi Rugby, Brian Lara Cricket from the original PlayStation, and Bubble Bobble. I mean, it was Bubble Bobble and Rainbow Islands, but don't play Rainbow Islands, just play Bubble Bobble.
Speaking of PS1 classics, was anybody... I don't know if this was ever a reasonable expectation, but internet hype was going absolutely mad that they might kind of, take the opportunity because it's the 20th anniversary and, loads of, everyone there was a PlayStation fan. Could there possibly have been a famous comeback for an old PS1 icon, whether it was Crash Bandicoot or Parappa the Rapper, which perhaps was the more likely one because I think Sony still owned Parappa the Rapper. Did anybody allow themselves to dream that something like that might pop up? And if so, were you disappointed that that something like that wasn't there? And do you think that it's a pipe dream that will never come to fruition, or maybe next time?
I think if any of these old icons could come back, besides Parappa the Rapper, I would have to say Jack and Daxter. Just because Naughty Dog I'm pretty sure Naughty Dog still owns the rights to that. But other than that, nothing that really came to mind. I mean, there was a big thing that Crash Bandicoot might show up, but I think that was just PlayStation trolling people once again. So, so there's always hope. I've learned at this point with all these conferences not to go in expecting too much. Hype yourself up too much anymore.
Speaking of PlayStation icons, I mean, obviously these icons haven't been gone at all, but I'm pretty sure they announced at E3 that there was a new Ratchet and Clank coming out.
Remake.
To coincide with the
movie.
The film. And I think the film's coming out in like February.
Next year, probably. No, I mean like 2016.
I'm gonna look it up, but we haven't seen anything of that.
We know there's a remake. They're remaking the first game.
Even if it's just a remake, like Ratchet and Clank is something that, I mean, we've seen how incredible Nintendo stuff looks now that it's finally in HD, and Ratchet and Clank is that similar kind of style that they're going for a kind of Pixar aesthetic rather than something that's realistic. And so I mean, I remember the first Ratchet and Clank game that came out on PS3. I thought looked absolutely incredible and probably still stands up. Whereas maybe you go back and play Uncharted 1, you might look at it now and think, yeah. So I think a PS4 Ratchet game could look fantastic, but yeah, the film just says early 2015. They apparently haven't put a date on it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's just whether they can afford to put some of those games out, and in terms of if they would sell much, whether there's enough kind of audience to just sell those games. I mean, I know a lot of people may go back to it in terms of nostalgia, but in terms of Naughty Dog maybe remaking Jak and Daxter, would they want to put their time into a game like that, or another Uncharted, or continue The Last of Us, which they know will sell, and these are established kind of franchises? I don't know if they can potentially risk going back to the mascots of the PlayStation Day.
They could always hire an outside company though and do it.
Yeah.
That's risky though, isn't it? That's risky.
It is.
They tarnish.
But I mean, a couple of them, as of recent, were outside sources that they wanted to HD them up, and they turned out okay.
And the most recent Sly Cooper game, I think they sent off to somebody else, and that actually turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
I think I've got that. They get that on Plus, and I've had it sitting on my PS3 for probably a year, and I might get around to that over Christmas break. It's been sitting there for a long time.
Well then, gents, I'm gonna have to nick off.
All right then.
Okay.
Will we see?
Okay.
Will we see you for the prestigious Game of the Year awards? You have to be there for at least Ian's Mobile Game of the Year.
Ian's Mobile Game of the Year. Mobile Handheld Game of the Year. Yep, definitely. I'll be in for as many as I can fit in with my hectic social schedule.
Oh, right, yes, one of those.
Yeah, let me know when starting.
I wouldn't recommend one of those, if I'm honest.
And, I'll be there for as many as I can do. So, right.
Okay.
Evening, gents.
See you later.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, so let's think about wrapping up here. Before we wrap up, then, and sort of get your final thoughts. Any remaining games at all that we've forgotten about that you would like to throw out there for discussion?
Or there's David Jaffe's new game at the end of the...
Yes, that would make sense to speak about that. I thought that looked really cool. I mean, I haven't played an online shooter in a while. I'm going to check out Plants vs. Zombies as soon as I can, but I thought that looked great. I thought the visual style was fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good-looking game. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have ended with that game or not during the conference, but...
No, I must say my immediate response when the Uncharted demo finished was, oh Christ, they've started with Uncharted. So I mean, their ending was something like Last Guardian.
Oh God,
Something.
get me started.
It seemed odd, yeah, it did, because I know it's not E3 or something of that ilk, and it was it's a cool looking game, absolutely, but it seemed it was a bit of a weird one. You would have thought they might have ended on a trailer to bow out the conference and for something big, but that's not the fault of David Jaffe's new game. That it was up last. It was still, I think, on its own 2 feet, looked like a cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was cool to end on kind of this new idea and new concept that they have in the pipeline to try and get people excited. I mean, I'm not one to usually play too much of multiplayer games, but I think the idea behind it would certainly pique my curiosity.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think I've ever even played a David Jaffe game.
You played Twist or God of War, haven't you?
No.
No?
Nope, I've got God of War 3 here. It's been sitting here for God knows how long.
Should definitely play that.
Yeah, I've just never been sure if I need to play the first 2 games.
It would help as far as
I guess
it's not. I guess it's not that needed. I guess I don't know.
No.
To
But
be
there
fair,
is,
the PS3 and Vita ports of those first two games are actually meant to be pretty good, aren't they? So
yeah.
maybe I'll get them on one of the two systems and play through those. But my backlog's ridiculous, and as I've already said, Dragon Age is I- it's an absurd. It's just an absurdly big game. It's just truly ridiculous. I mean, I said to myself last week, like I've had Destiny sitting here since mid-September. I know it didn't get a great reception, and I don't know if I'll have the perseverance to see it through to the end. But I'm going to play that game. Christmas break, I'm going to play Destiny. People will be getting it for Christmas. People will be getting the expansions. There might still be a pretty, people will be around playing that game. I'm going to play it. But now Dragon Age, I don't know how on earth I'm meant to fit anything else into my life. And I must
See,
say,
that's what I'm afraid of.
yeah, I know. I was going to hold off until Christmas to get Dragon Age, but I stupidly picked it up on Friday, and I'm in the final 2 weeks of term now, where deadlines are coming at me thick and fast, and I've stupidly bought this game. Something's got to give. Dragon Age is not going to get played, or assignments are not going to get done, and I have a terrible feeling assignments are not going to get done. So,
I have a bad time with those Elder Scroll games. Not because not bad times I should say, but my significant other gets on my case because I don't get the hell off the consoles when those games come out. So I'm afraid Dragon Age is going to be the same way.
yeah,
So
it seems really cool. I mean, I've maybe played it for about 3 hours over the course of the weekend, and I played about half an hour before I came on here, and it's just absurdly huge. I'm in the kind of first big area, which I think is the hinterlands, which if you go on Reddit or anywhere, there are tons of threads of people just going, "Get out of the hinterlands," because it's entirely conceivable, apparently, to spend about 40 hours in there doing quests. And
jeez.
for a lot of people, they get bogged down in it and eventually go, "I don't see what the big deal is. This game seems kind of boring." And everyone's like, "No, no, no, get out of there because there's like a billion other areas that are way more
Yeah.
interesting." So I'm going to try and make sure that I don't fall into that trap. But I'm sure I'm going to be there for a fair while anyway. And yeah, it just looks ridiculous, but it seems fun. And I returned to form after. To be fair, I didn't mind Dragon Age 2, but a lot of
You
people
didn't
didn't
miss
like
much.
that game. And Mass Effect 3 was on its own 2 feet a bit of a disappointment, I thought. But anyway, yeah, what were your overall thoughts then on the PlayStation experience? I don't know who wants to take that first. Either one.
No, I thought it was really impressive. I was overall impressed by the kind of lineup of games they showed, and it was good to see some footage of Uncharted and them actually address the Vita for that fan base out there to explain it's not dead and show that there are games coming to it. And yeah, I mean, we saw some of their kind of first party studios, announce some new games. I mean, we still haven't seen what some of them have, but I think it was a good starting point, and I think it was more about celebrating the 20th anniversary, and maybe people actually at the event will get more from it in terms of playing all these games. But I think showing to people obviously watching it was all these great games. I think it was really good.
Just before I ask you, Brian, one other game that's just cropped into my mind that they showed. Oh Christ, was it Until? Is it the horror
Until
game?
Dawn.
Until Dawn, yeah.
Is that scratching anyone's itch? I mean, it looks like kind of horror heavy rain. I must say, I think the way they demoed it was really cool. It was just like, what should I do? What should I do? And kind of letting. It was like Twitch plays Pokemon, but
Yeah.
in a press conference. Well, press conference. It's not a press conference anymore, is it? It's a rabble. I mean, visually it looks great, and it's cool that they've got Panettone.
Panettone. Panettiere, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I liked Heavy Rain, in games like it. But my thing with games like that is that once I'm done, I'm done. And I know Until Dawn's one of those games where you have a whole bunch of different endings that you could do by playing the game over and over again. So I think it's a good idea. I just don't know if it's a game that I could dedicate myself to see how all the different endings how they occur.
Yeah, I think that's a problem with those sort of games. Like, they definitely encourage replayability, but in terms of how long the actual first playthrough is, a lot of people might just sit there and think to themselves, I'll go on YouTube and check out all the other endings. I really can't be bothered to play through it again.
Yeah, that's a good point. Brian, so what were your overall thoughts on the whole show? If you had to give it a score or something.
It was fine. It wasn't anything that just really blew me out of the water. I don't think it's something that they need to do all the time. I mean, if they want to do the actual conference where people can come and play the demos and whatnot, I think that's a good idea. I'm just afraid that if developers continue doing this, they're just blowing their load, and E3 will just become irrelevant at some point. And not that they did that. I'm sure they have a lot of other things going on. I just there's a couple of good things in there. I would have to say, well, I'd probably give it if I was giving it our score, I would probably give it, I'd say a 3 out of 5.
Speaking of E3 though, I mean, not 6 months away or whatever it is, but
yeah,
a lot of the stuff they did show over the weekend is stuff that's coming in the first half of the year. Like other than Uncharted,
right.
a lot of the indie stuff is coming in the first half of the year. Bloodborne is The Order, even the baseball. So and as Tom mentioned, there's a lot of the first party studios where they haven't said what they're doing. Guerrilla Games are rumored to be doing that dinosaur thing, which I'm all for dinosaurs. I mean, come on, give me some dinos. And then the God of War people, Media Molecule are doing the Tearaway port, but you'd imagine they've got something else going on. And then a lot of these studios are two-team studios now as well. Naughty Dog will have a team doing, probably doing preliminary work on whatever they're going to do, whether it's another Last of Us, which I'm not sure they would give another team The Last of Us when the two writers of the first game are doing Uncharted 4. So maybe they're doing something new, which would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely, The Last Guardian, obviously.
I guess my concern stems from Nintendo started doing their Nintendo Directs once every few months, and then they don't even show up to, as far as a conference wise, they don't show up to E3 or any other conference. They just rely on these videos, and with the PlayStation doing this, knowing that they can do their own thing and people will attend it. I guess my concern is that conferences like that, like E3 and maybe other ones or PAX or whatever, become irrelevant.
I'm not sure that will happen. I'm not sure that happened with the PlayStation, because there's a genuine rivalry between PlayStation and Xbox, and there's something to be said for one of them does a conference and then 6 hours later the other one steps up, and there's kind of this cool rivalry where they're competing with one another, and Nintendo kind of recognized we're not really part of this battle anymore. We'll skulk off into the corner and do our own thing when we feel about it. So unless the PlayStation and Xbox are all of a sudden irrelevant to one another because one of them is so far in the lead or something, I think I still think that they'll both go to E3 with big stuff to show, because if one of them does, there's all of a sudden all the attention is on the other guy, which isn't ideal. Just finally, actually, speaking of Nintendo, there was those Game Awards things, and most of the big stuff was Nintendo. What did you think of Zelda and what else? Was there something else?
Yeah, that's pretty much it as far as Nintendo, I think.
Zelda, and I mean, they said Star Fox.
Star Fox, yeah.
They said the words.
Yeah. Zelda looks good. It's definitely they're doing what they need to do for a while now, honestly. I mean, not that the Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword were bad games, but they just followed the same look, I guess you could say. And now they have a console that's capable of creating a beautiful game and in a very big open world game. Apparently, according to the map that was on that video they showed.
Mm.
So I'm not the biggest Zelda fan. I've never beaten a Zelda game, but I
No, I
think
mean,
because I have a Wii U now, that's probably a game I'll probably end up actually buying. So, so far so good.
yeah, I've never finished a Zelda either. Twilight Princess, I think I got relatively far through. That was actually on GameCube, and then Wind Waker I had on GameCube. Didn't get past the first kind of stealthy dungeon, and then bought it on Wii U in the summer, and I can't get past that stealthy dungeon. So maybe that's another one to add to the Christmas to-do list. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Okay, we're going to call it there then, and we'll be back with more of these for our Game of the Year discussions, which I don't know when we're going to. I think either next week or the week after, I think. So, because I think the week after that. Sorry, no, yeah. Next week or the week after. The week after would be the week leading up to Christmas Day, so I don't know about that. It depends how many days we're going to need to spread out the categories, because I think we've got 15 or 16. So if we did
Okay.
four or five a go, that would still take like 4 days. So
Yeah.
we might be next week. I don't know. We'll think about it and we'll see. But that should be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, sure.
All right then. Cheers, guys, and I will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.